welcome to my fireside. My name's Nannie Annie, and I'm going to share with you another of the ghostly tales linked to this end of St Andrews. Now, many years ago, when I first came to bide in St Andrews, I had to take some lodgings in a house at the end of South Street, just round the corner. And while I stayed there, I was only there a few days, but when I stayed there, something rather strange happened to me. Now, I'd never had anything to do with anything supernatural before that, and to be honest, I've not really had anything to do with it since. But that first night that I stayed there, I definitely saw a ghost. A ghost that I cried the blue lassie. Now you might think, what did you have for your tea that night? But I assure you, all I had was a wee bit chicken and some salad. I'd been given a big, comfortable, well-furnished room with a fireplace. And I was quite tired after my journey, so I went to bed quite early that night and soon fell sound asleep, only to be woken up in the middle of the night by the feeling that someone was staring at me. Now you might ken that feeling, because most folk ken that if you stare at somebody who's sleeping long enough, they wake up. Anyway, I woke up and half opened my een to see that, well, somebody was staring at me, because our leaning on the mantelpiece, staring at me in the mirror, was the figure of a lassie dressed in a long, gauzy blue frock. Well, I thought to myself, is this somebody in the house playing a joke on me? So I pretended to go back to sleep, but I still kept my een a wee bit open, and I watched this figure as she turned round, and I realised that she had long golden hair hanging down past her waist. And I thought again who it might be, and maybe it was another guest in the house that I hadn't met yet. But if it was, what was she doing wandering about in the middle of the night? And what was she doing in my room? Was she sleepwalking? But as I watched, the figure began to glide. Aye, glide was no walking. She began to glide over to the other side of the room, drifting over the top of the carpet, no on the carpet, over the top of the carpet. And it was then I noticed that she had bare feet, nae shoon nor stockings on at all. Well, as I watched through half-shut een, this figure drifted over to the wall on the other side of the room and stood below a big picture that was hanging on the wall. And then she seemed to reach into her pocket and take out a wee key, and she opened a wee door that was set under the picture without making a sound. She reached her hand in to the wee cupboard and drew out something that shone in the lamplight. Now you might wonder how I managed to see all this, but when I'm in a strange house or a strange room, I always leave the lamp on. So the lamplight was glistening off whatever it was she had in her hand. And then she drifted back out to the bed, and I got a good look at her. And oh, she was bonny, but a kind of unearthly beauty that I'd never seen before or since. Well, anyway, when she got to the bed, she raised her hand up above me and leaned down on me, and it was at this point that I leapt out of the bed and made a grab for her, shouting, "Now I'll find out who's playing a trick on me." But to my surprise, my hands closed on nothing. And when I looked up, there she was, standing at the other side of the room, smiling at me. And then, well, I was dumbfounded because she began to disappear in a cloud of blue mist until I found that I was on my own again. Well, I tell you, I was shaking. I was shaking like nothing, so I went out of the dresser and I poured myself a wee dram. In fact, if I'm honest, I poured myself 2 wee drams. And then I went and lay down on the bed again, just to try and work out what it was I'd seen. And I must have fell asleep. Well, in the morning, I went to have my breakfast, and my hostess, the landlady, asked me if I'd slept all right, and I said, well, aye, but I told her what had happened. And she said, oh, you've seen her too. Other folk have seen her, including my husband. But now that you've seen her, well, I think there must be some truth in it. Of course there's truth in it, I tell her. I saw it. Come on, I'll show you. And so we went back up the stair to that room, and I took her out of the wall where the picture was. And we looked for the wee cupboard door, but we couldn't see anything. And then she says, you know, I've heard a story that a long, long time ago there was a murder took place in this house. Maybe it's got something to do with that. Well, we tapped on the wall under the picture and pulled away some of the wallpaper. And that's when we found it. The wee cupboard door. Well, we opened it up and I put my hand in, and it went a way, way back. Quite far. And in there we found a needle case, a wee pair of scissors, a thimble, and a shiny dagger. We also found a bundle of musty old papers and an envelope. And inside the envelope there was a tress of long golden hair. And we also found a wee miniature picture, something painted on ivory. And you know what? The face on that miniature was the exact same face as I'd seen the night before. And round the outside of that wee picture was the name Ermentrude. And that same name was written on the envelope as well. Well, we took the dusty old papers and we searched through them, hoping to maybe solve the mystery. And I think maybe we did. You see, we discovered that a long, long time ago, maybe hundreds of years ago, that house had belonged to a Frenchman who stayed there with his daughter, the lovely Ermentrude. Now, her father had hoped that Ermentrude would become a nun, but she was haeing none of it, because she'd fallen in love with a young laddie who was a student at the university. Well, the preparations for the marriage were well underway. They were to be married at Easter in the cathedral. But aye, the course of true love doesn't often go smoothly, does it? And the bump along this road came in the form of Ermentrude's cousin, Marie. Now, Marie had quite often come to visit the house, and she was there visiting just before the wedding. And it seems that Ermentrude found out that her beloved had transferred his affections to Marie. And she also found out that a speedy elopement was being planned. Well, she was furious, as you can imagine. So she took herself off to see the fishwife. Some folk cried her a witch, who stayed out Argyle Street. One named Alison Braithwaite. And this fishwife made a potion and gave it to Ermentrude. And she also gave her a dagger and cast a spell on the lassie that drained her of any goodness and kindness that she had left, and fired her up with such fury that she wanted to have revenge on her cousin. So a few nights later, Ermentrude entered the bedroom of Marie as she slept, that very room that I'd been sleeping in, and she took that dagger and she plunged it into the lassie's heart, and she died. Well, after that, Ermentrude disappeared. And they say that she took herself off out the Kinkel Braes and drowned herself by the Maiden Rock. Hence the name of that rock to this day. And she's never was seen again until now. The bewitched Ermentrude.